Love. Some would say it took a backseat when the pandemic forced us apart. As a family-run and proudly Canadian-owned company, Charm Diamond Centers saw the need to bring us together with tales of love and created the Canadian Love Map podcast. Since then, we've shared hundreds of real, uplifting stories that prove love conquers all. So thank you for listening. We couldn't do it without you. And remember, love starts here.
This is a true Canadian love story.
We were meant to be together.
I can't imagine my life without you.
Honestly, he's the light of my life.
It's nice to be in that tractor beam of love.
I'm her biggest fan.
I think I knew I'd lost my heart again.
I knew I wanted a marriage like that.
Difficult roads can lead to very beautiful destinations.
Well, love is the most important thing.
The mascara was coming all the way down her face, and she looked up, she looked over and smiled, and she had the nicest eyes I'd ever seen. It was like in a field full of people, everybody just disappeared.
Hi, I'm Nancy Regan. Today's love story belongs to Tamara and Len. Once upon a time, they were both single parents. His daughter was in her class, but this parent-teacher dynamic did not start off with high marks. After some bumpy interactions, it took a messy relay for charity to breathe life into their romance. This is the Canadian Love Map. Tamara and Len, welcome to the Canadian Love Map.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
I have 3 kids, and I have had some good and some bad parent-teacher interviews, but nothing has ever come out of it like has for you guys. Tell me this crazy story.
So, I mean, I guess on my end, it was just the same old parent-teacher interview, right? But what had happened was Victoria was a student of mine for 4 years. And throughout that time, she liked to talk a lot about her single dad. So, I'd heard a lot about him, and she had a lot of respect for him, but also, like when she had problems with him, would come and would tell my friend and I about them. And, like I was kind of on the one hand, I'm like, okay, Victoria, you tell us about your single dad and you're always talking about how you want to find somebody for him, but then you make him sound like, oh my God, like this is not a good sales pitch.
She's a pathetic
right? Every time there was a problem, like, oh my dad, this and that. And right. And I didn't think anything of it. Until her grade 12 year. As I said, I never met him. I'd had a few phone conversations with him, and they seemed reasonably normal. I was able to talk about her education and get to a common ground and move along. But in her grade 12 year, she wanted to take a spare, and he did not want her to have only 3 courses. He wanted her to have a full 4-course timetable. So I talked to him and worked it out that she would take the 3 courses and use her spare to work with me to make sure she was on top of her other courses. In January, towards the end of the semester, she was
I sense problems looming on the horizon.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I did not at that time, because she came into my office and said, my dad wants you to call him. Okay. Now, first of all, normally.
Yes, but a teenager's perception of what their parent wants, your kids don't do what you want at the best of times. So the perception of what really was said at that point was different.
Okay. Because I was a little bit like taken aback. Normally, when parents want to speak with me, they'll send me an email or they'll call me and say, "Can we set up a time to talk?"
But see, I'm old school, and I don't do the whole email thing. And talking to somebody on the phone is the way I communicate.
Yeah.
Yes, but you can understand, Len. It does sound like it makes you feel like a little girl again, like, uh-oh.
No.
My dad wants to talk to you.
And again, it probably was something like, can you have Miss Gord call me when she has a moment?
Yes.
Like something like that.
Lost in translation, right?
Right.
Lost in translation.
Broken telephone.
But so I guess that kind of already had my hackles up a little bit. So I called him, and Victoria was in my office, and it became, in my opinion, a very loud conversation. My version of the story, I was not holding the phone anywhere near my ear. In fact, I was holding it an arm's length away, and I heard every word that Len had to say to me.
Yes, because the volume was up on your phone.
So Len was a little displeased because, according to him, I had promised that Victoria would be with me every day during the spare. And I tried to explain why that was not possible and why I never would have made that promise.
Now I realize why.
Yes, now that he hears my stories every day, he understands why. But, one of the big things was I didn't have an extra computer in my office. So if she needed access to a computer, I would have her go to another room where we had computers. And
right
next door. But, I remember saying, I don't have a computer in here for her. But if you'd like, I will make sure to get one just for her and leave it here so she can work right next to me. And he was like, yeah, that's what I want. And I'm like, who is this guy? Like, what does he think?
I don't think that went like that either.
Oh, I like where this is going. What was your perception of it? Come on,
my
Len.
My perception of it was, Miss Gord, you're doing a wonderful job. I really, am Victoria's starting to get straight A's. I'm happy with all the work that you're doing. I think that was my perception of how that conversation went.
So you think there was just one little area
I
you
think
needed
she's
tweaking?
Overreacting totally.
This is
well,
probably
I still think it makes a good story.
I was going to say, this is probably the biggest argument we've ever had, if you want to call it an argument, in our relationship, was how it really began.
I don't think that's unusual for couples.
So after that,
you started no, just kidding.
I did not pursue you. I was so mad at you. I was like, who is this guy? I'm like, like, this guy has a lot of nerve. And then I more or less tried to avoid talking to you because I was so upset with you.
Right. You weren't calling me Len at that
I wasn't
point.
calling you Len. I was not talking to you at all. And then in April, it was parents' night. So I decided to do the only mature thing. I saw him waiting out. Oh, no, I take it back. It was parents' night, but you called me. Oh, this was a lot of, He called me and said, I don't know which teachers I'm supposed to be meeting with or if I even have appointments. Can you figure that out for me?
No,
or something, or can you arrange that?
That was the way that it worked either.
So I've arranged the parent night for him, and now I see him sitting there. So I just walked over and I went, Mr. Griffiths, I am Miss Gord. Like a little bit snippy, and, kind of shook his hand and walked away. And I was like, that'll teach him. I don't know why I thought that was me making a statement, but I was like, there, I showed him.
You showed me.
And then as far as I was concerned, that was it. It was done. And then in May, we had the Relay for Life.
Victoria had put together a team for cancer. So they did their laps around the track at the school, had team shirts made, the whole bit. So I figured, well, I'd like to come because I had lost my mother to cancer, in 2008. So I thought, this was a great way for Victoria to kind of remember her grandmother and that type of thing. So I figured I wanted to go to support her.
When did the two of you run into each other?
That day,
because he had taken the day off work and Victoria had asked for me to be on the team. But even then, we didn't talk really. No. We didn't really acknowledge each other very much during the day.
I was scared of you.
We actually didn't start talking till 8:00 that night when we finally actually had a real conversation.
Okay. So what made the difference?
The principal had arranged for the local fire department to come over with the big truck and put the hose up and start spraying, and the kids, kids and adults were running through the spray. So I didn't bring a change of clothes. so Victoria was like, "Oh, well, Dad, do you want to come with me?" And I said, "Well, Victoria, I'd love to, but I can't. I don't have a change of clothes with me." And I'm like, anyways. Then Miss Gord came over and said, "I'll go with you."
I hate going under sprinklers and things like that. But Victoria was so excited, and I did have a soft spot for Victoria. So she asked, and I said, "Okay, like whatever, like I'll dry off, not a big deal. We'll go." So, I went through.
Yeah, and the two of them came up. They were soaked from head to toe. The mascara was coming all the way down her face, and she looked up, she looked over and smiled, and she had the nicest eyes I'd ever seen.
Oh, that's such an interesting moment for her beauty to strike you.
Yeah,
that was real.
Yeah, it was like in a field full of people, everybody just disappeared. I know that sounds a little corny, but
no, that's gorgeous. I love that sentiment. And Tamara, had he made a better impression on you by the end of that day?
Yeah. So at that point, number one, I was really impressed with the fact that he had taken the day off work to come out and support Victoria. Like that spoke volumes to me. And then after I went through the sprinkler, it happened like my oldest daughter was there, but my parents were picking up my younger two and going to bring them after school to drop them off. And when they got there, watching Len with them really just like blew me away. My little one, who was 9 at the time, somebody must have dropped some coins in the grass, and she just, and she doesn't take to people as a rule, but she walked over to Len and she's like, "Can you help me find all the coins?" And they were like collecting coins together, and he was giving them to her. And I was just blown away that my little one saw something in him, and the way that he was responding to her, it was amazing.
Yeah, well, we made $6 or $7. What was the best part?
It was profitable. This podcast is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, Canada's largest family-owned jewelry store. They are proud to be putting love on the map. And the staff at Charm Diamond Centers are thrilled to be a part of your love story too. So visit charmdiamondcenters.com or one of your local stores. Love starts here. Okay, so how did this turn into a romance?
So in the evening, there were luminaries. They gave us the paper bags and the tea lights, and we lined the track, and it was getting windy, so they kept blowing over, and I kept trying to pick them up. So Len came over and gave me like the best pickup line ever. "If you put gravel in it, they'll stop blowing over." And I don't know why. I think at that point I just said to him, like, I think you did a great job. I know it's not easy being a single parent, right? And you've done a great job raising Victoria. And we just started talking. And one of the things that really struck me was I don't ever share my personal life story with parents at school. And I started talking about, my experience and what I'd been through previously. And Len was sharing his story and how similar our experiences were.
So that was common ground, but then you found out you had a lot of other things in common, right?
Exactly.
Yes. As we started to get to know each other, both of us really like wrestling, which I think was something that Len never thought he'd ever find in a partner. I don't know. Like, it's not usual that your girlfriend goes, "Oh, I went to WrestleMania," right? We would go to the same concerts. "Oh, I was, the same one as you. I was sitting over there. You're sitting over there." So we do. We have a lot of common interests in terms of what we like to watch.
Yeah, similar tastes.
Music and all those pieces. And
what were your music similarities?
Anything 80s rock music, early 90s. She loves her Bon Jovi and I think if the tables were turned and Mr. Bon Jovi was single, I don't think we'd be having this conversation.
I'd be talking to Tamara and John. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Yes.
Is it true that you also had a lot of coincidences happen as your romance was blooming?
Yes. I thought Len was full of nonsense half the time I spoke to him. Every time we would talk and I would say something, he's, oh, me too. And I'm like, oh, here we go. So one night we were having a really long conversation and I don't know why it came up, but I was, oh, my birthday's October 4th. No way. And I thought in my head, oh, here we go again. So I said, let me guess, your birthday's October 4th? He goes, no, October 5th. And I'm like, this guy is so full of it. It's ridiculous. So, okay, you know what? Like, show me your driver's license the next time I see you, kind of thing. And the big joke now is I'm like, I don't know how he did it so quickly or how he got his birth date legally changed, but sure enough, right? October 5th on his driver's license. And it was little things like that really just aligned for us.
I heard there was a lovely story about when you were driving in the rain.
Yes.
A coincidence story. Some would say it was coincidence. Some would not.
Yeah, we were actually decided to go up to Aurelia, one of our favorite spots. The kids love it up there too. Anyways, this day was just Tamara and I, so we decided to drive up to Aurelia. It was a relatively nice day when we left, but when we started on the highway, it started just pouring. So we were just shooting the breeze, chit-chatting. And for some reason, she just turned to me and said, do you think your mom would have liked me? Just then, the rain, I don't know what was going on. There was a pause in the rain, and then all of a sudden, this great big rainbow had appeared. And I looked over, and I said, there's your answer right there.
I think I was speechless. It was remarkable to me.
Wow, that's extraordinary. Well, you had lots of signposts then, and you eventually got around to getting hitched, I gather, because I've seen some pretty fabulous pictures. Tell me about the wedding.
So we went up to, I had my friend Debbie, who was a photographer. She did professional photography. I said to her what my plan was and can you accommodate this? And we want to go up we wanted to get family pictures anyways. So I said, I'm going to do this at the same time. Perfect opportunity to get engagement photos, right? As well as some nice family photos.
Yeah. So one of the big jokes was when Len and I had talked about, if we were going to get engaged, he had said, and I knew that the kids were going to be there. So I said to him, when you ask, be clear, I'm going to say no, because I want to see what the kids' reactions are going to be. So they knew it was coming. I didn't know it was coming. And at one point we got to a spot, and then Debbie said,
they were actually standing away. They were all filming.
Yeah. So Debbie said, okay, it's just going to be, like mom and dad basically right now. And we are there by the two of us by the water. And Len, says what he says. And he gets down on one knee and, will you marry me?
I think I was a little uncomfortable at the beginning because you kind of were looking at me like, what?
Oh, because he looked so, like, the whole time he'd been nervous. Fine. And then suddenly he had this look on his face. And I looked at him, I'm like, what is the matter with you? Like, why do you look like that? Right? It was like almost like he was nauseous and was going to throw up or something, right? And I'm like, what is going on here? So he gets down on one knee and he proposes and will you marry me? And I, without missing a beat, I'm like, nope. Right?
And all of a sudden the kid said, did she say? No, actually it was Sierra, because that's the only voice you could hear.
Yeah, the others were dead silent. I think they were speechless. And Sierra's like, did she just say no? And of course, Len just goes to Tamara, like, will you marry me? And I'm like, yes, I will marry you. Right? And it was awesome. Like the kids, started screaming. They came running over and gave us hugs. But it was just so funny because, like, for that brief moment, they were absolutely rendered speechless. They had no idea what was happening.
But see, that's the type of parents we are.
Cruel parents.
You like Tamara was saying, if you're going to have your kids in therapy, you got to get your money's worth.
Oh, no, I'm sure they appreciated the humor afterwards, and it'll be a family story forever.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to jump to the wedding because I really need to know about these special touches you had at the wedding.
So we, again, because of COVID, decided that it was going to be, we didn't want to wait for COVID to finish because we talked about doing a destination wedding. We wanted to get married on a beach at twilight. And when we realized that Fern Resort in Aurelia fit the bill and we could do it during COVID, we decided to get married in our favorite place. So we went back to Aurelia for the wedding. And we both were planning surprises for each other. And my poor brother was...
Yeah, we drove her brother and my brother just nuts because
we were trying to keep these secrets.
I'd come to Al and David and say, well, this is okay. Can you guys accommodate this? I got to get this out onto the beach. And she's doing the same thing. And we're doing it all cloak and dagger. And of course, they're not saying anything. David's helping Al with. So what I wanted to surprise Len with was I was trying to figure out how to incorporate a wedding. Oh my goodness, a rainbow into the wedding.
Oh,
because
nice.
I wanted to, and what I actually was hoping was that I could get like a rainbow machine, something to kind of cast it over the lake. But that was not coming to fruition. So we spent a long time trying to figure out how to do a rainbow so that it was obvious what we were doing. And I finally settled on having a canopy.
And I actually think that everybody on our street saw it before I did because they were doing it.
We were assembling it in the street.
They were trying to do it when I wasn't home, out on the roadway.
Yeah. So, and thankfully I did because I couldn't get it to stand up. And my friend from across the street came over and he's like, "You need umbrella stands. Go get umbrella stands." And that's how that actually came to be. So we had 4 mismatched umbrella stands, but it was great. We had a rainbow canopy so that we got married, like basically for me, like with his mother watching over us. Mm-hmm. And that was my one. And then the second big surprise I had for Len, we both love Taco Bell. And we had talked about getting a 3-flavored Taco Bell cake made. What I didn't tell Len was when I called the baker, I switched it out. My principal said to me, why don't you make a cake that is reflective of, where you met, right? He's like, your office door or something. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. We met on the track. And then it just like kind of came together. So we actually got the 3-flavored cake. It's the back of my school building on the track with 2 figurines. And then I had us eating the Taco Bell so that at least we had the Taco Bell still incorporated into the cake somehow. And that
was your wedding cake. That was awesome.
Our wedding cake. Yeah. And then I asked the resort if we could do, because Taco Bell up in Aurelia, I think closes at 10 p.m. or something. So I asked if they could do like a midnight taco bar. So at least we had that kind of taco theme at the wedding.
Was the cake a surprise to you, Len?
It was. It took me a minute to kind of figure out what was going on, and then once I kind of really had a second to look at it, I was like, oh my God, this is Thornley.
It's really sentimental.
Well, the nice thing is I can actually say she's technically my high school sweetheart because I actually went to that school myself.
You're just a slow learner. It took you a few years to find your high school sweetheart.
Right. And we didn't have the traditional, here comes the bride going, walking down to the water.
We walked down to a Bon Jovi song and we walked back up to a Kiss song.
Oh, I think you're going to have to tell me which songs.
So the Bon Jovi song was Thank You for Loving Me. and
Beautiful.
Kiss was forever.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. And I'm really appreciative that you would take the time to share it with us. So thank you, Tamara. Thank you, Len. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Yes.
Here's to love.
I'll drink to that tonight.
Thanks so much for listening to the Canadian Love Map. If you love us, please subscribe and share. We'll be back next week with another love story to add to the map. This podcast is presented and made possible by Charm Diamond Centers. It's hosted by me, Nancy Regan, and is produced and distributed by Podstarter.
This
has been
a Podstarter
production.